In November 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public and triggered the fastest adoption of a technology in modern history. Within months, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta committed hundreds of billions of dollars to artificial intelligence infrastructure, long-term energy contracts, and physical expansion. The direct result is that the cost of electricity, land, materials, and industrial capacity you depend on is being structurally pushed higher, whether you use AI or not. Artificial intelligence is not a software story, it is a resource story. Every serious AI system depends on inputs that cannot be scaled with code, electricity, physical space, and raw materials. Those inputs are finite, and they are being repriced right now. Before AI, technology growth mostly lived in the digital layer. More users did not require proportionally more energy, more software did not require more land, and margins expanded without stressing physical systems. AI breaks that pattern completely. Training large models requires massive, continuous power consumption. Running them at scale requires data centers operating around the clock, and cooling systems, backup power, security, and redundancy are not optional features. They are the core cost. This is not speculative. The numbers are public. Between 2023 and 2024, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta all announced capital expenditure plans measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars, not for apps or software features, but for physical infrastructure. Microsoft alone committed over $100 billion toward AI-related data centers and cloud expansion. Amazon followed through AWS with similar commitments, and Google reversed years of capital restraint, explicitly citing AI compute demand. These companies are no longer competing for users, they are competing for power. A single large AI data center can consume as much electricity as a mid-sized city. That power must be available continuously, it must be cheap enough to preserve margins, and it must be reliable enough to avoid outages. That immediately changes energy markets. Utilities sign long-term contracts, power producers lock in industrial buyers, and grid upgrades accelerate to support concentrated demand. Energy that once served households and small businesses is now prioritized for industrial compute, not temporarily, but structurally. This does not always cause sudden price spikes. Instead, it creates permanent price floors. The same pressure applies to land. Data centers cannot be built just anywhere. They require proximity to power generation, transmission lines, water access for cooling, and political stability, which concentrates demand into specific regions. Northern Virginia, Texas, Arizona, parts of the Midwest, and Northern Europe are already seeing this effect. Land prices in these areas rise even when housing demand slows, property taxes increase, commercial rents climb, and infrastructure costs rise, all driven by competition with industrial infrastructure. Most people misread this as housing inflation, but it is not. It is competition between households and machines for physical space. The third constraint is materials. AI infrastructure depends on copper, aluminum, silicon, rare earth elements, and energy-intensive manufacturing, inputs already under pressure from electrification mandates, supply chain fragmentation, and geopolitical concentration. Mining capacity does not expand quickly. Processing capacity is limited, permitting timelines are long, and capital requirements are high. When AI demand is layered on top of existing strain, prices respond structurally, not explosively, but persistently. This breaks another historical rule. For decades, technological progress lowered prices, efficiency gains flowed to consumers, and productivity reduced costs. AI does not work that way in the near or medium term. AI raises capital intensity, raises energy demand, and raises competition for scarce physical inputs. The productivity gains are captured upstream by infrastructure owners, not downstream by consumers. The actors driving this are clear. Technology firms pursue AI dominance because control of compute translates directly into platform control, pricing power, and strategic leverage. Energy producers benefit from long-term, high-utilization demand that stabilizes revenue and justifies expansion. Governments support AI build-out because it is framed as national competitiveness, economic security, and geopolitical advantage. Whether or not higher prices are the intention, the incentive structure guarantees them. More demand for fixed inputs means higher clearing prices. This creates another upward wealth transfer. Energy producers benefit, utilities benefit, landowners near infrastructure hubs benefit, and materials and mining companies benefit. Consumers face higher baseline costs, workers face higher living expenses without matching wage growth, and small businesses absorb higher input costs without pricing power. This is not monetary inflation, it is physical inflation, and it is reinforced by policy. Governments fast-track data center permits, subsidize energy access, prioritize grid connections, and offer tax incentives to large operators, all of which protect incumbents, crowd out smaller users, and harden price floors. The system response follows predictable roles. Incumbent protectors secure long-term contracts and regulatory support. Their risk is political, not financial. Challengers attempt to build parallel infrastructure without direct confrontation, competing globally for energy, chips, and materials, which raises demand even further. Hedgers and opportunists reposition quietly. Sovereign wealth funds increase exposure to infrastructure, and private capital flows into energy, data centers, land, and materials. They do not debate AI ethics, they buy scarcity. This produces two outcomes. If the current order holds, AI accelerates consolidation, energy, land, and materials prices remain structurally elevated, productivity gains accrue to capital owners, and households absorb higher costs as the new baseline. If the order fragments, energy nationalism intensifies, infrastructure regionalizes, price volatility increases, and access matters more than efficiency. In both cases, physical inputs reprice upward. This is where most people misunderstand what is happening. They expect AI to make life cheaper, they expect automation to reduce costs, and they expect prices to fall. That belief is outdated. AI reduces labor dependence while increasing dependence on capital and energy. Savings are captured by firms, and costs are distributed through the economy. This is why energy bills rise even when demand elsewhere slows, why industrial land remains expensive, and why materials prices do not collapse during downturns. This mechanism is not temporary, it is structural. Here's what this means financially without hedging. First, stop treating cash as a safe long-term store of value when the inputs that define the economy are being repriced upward. Second, avoid assets and businesses that depend on cheap power, cheap logistics, or stable input costs. Those assumptions are breaking. Third, favor assets and companies that control energy production, grid access, infrastructure, land near compute hubs, or essential materials. Fourth, recognize that geography is becoming a financial variable again. Regions with domestic energy and infrastructure investment will diverge from those without. Fifth, stop positioning for a tech-driven deflationary collapse. AI does not make power, land, or materials cheaper, it makes them central. AI is not inflating prices accidentally, it is reorganizing scarcity, and scarcity sets prices. That is the mechanism.